Well, how do you have peace? And even more so, how do you continue to trust God when you are experiencing life's greatest struggles and heartaches? That's what we're exploring this week during our Sunday services and during our time for our group's videos. And before we begin, remember we value people to know God, build relationships, and to make a difference. And to help you and your group do that during this time, we provide a discussion guide designed to help you and your group while you meet and discuss this week's topic. You can find that group's video guide linked in the video description. This week, Pastor Tom shared a message about the highs and lows that we experience in life. In 2 Kings chapter 4, we read the story of a woman whom, through Elisha, God blesses with a son. She was experiencing the greatest moment of her life. However, years later, her son would pass away. And in the middle of this storm of her life, we read about her maintaining an incredible level of peace amidst brokenness, as she seeks out Elisha, eventually to have Elisha perform an incredible miracle. As crazy as it may seem, while this woman experienced the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, the peace she exhibits isn't a result of the miracle that was performed. But we see that her peace was independent of the miracle. While you maybe haven't had an experience just like this woman where your child died only to miraculously be brought back to life, I'm certain you've experienced some of life's greatest struggles. In fact, sometimes when you are in the middle of your struggles, you may begin to question a number of things. In fact, you may even wonder if God really cares about what you're going through. You still continue to believe in God, but you just wonder if He cares about your pain, your struggles, and your heartbreaks. Because you think that if He did care, it seems to you like He would do something about it. Have you ever wondered, does God notice? Does God even care? Does He even notice the storm that you seem to be in the middle of? Well, if so, I want to let you know that you're not alone. The woman from 2 Kings chapter 4, she had to have felt as if she was in the middle of a storm, yet we see her display a level of peace throughout. So how can we too feel peace in the middle of a time of panic? Well, let's explore that through a story found in Mark chapter 4, where the disciples find themselves in an unexpected storm. That may be where some of you are right now. Maybe in the middle of a storm. Maybe you're just coming out of one. Maybe you're just going into one. But you're facing something that you didn't choose, you didn't want, you certainly didn't expect. And you may be familiar with this story in verses 35 through 41 of Mark chapter 4. Jesus had just gotten done teaching near the Sea of Galilee, and then later that night, Jesus and the disciples got into a boat to go across this large lake. And as they were brought out onto the water, a great windstorm arose. And there were breaking waves. Water was filling the boat. The disciples found themselves literally in the middle of a storm. But as Scripture tells us this, he was in the stern, asleep, on the cushion. And they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" See, the reason this story is so impactful to so many people is because the disciples expressed often what the emotions are that we feel. They look at Jesus and they ask, well, do you not care? Here's one of the things that's difficult for Christians to accept. Even if we are Jesus followers, we are not exempt from the storms of life. And like the disciples on the Sea of Galilee, when we're going through the storm, we can feel desperate. Whatever illusion of control that in life that we thought we had is now obviously gone. And we can find ourselves crying to God, "God, do you care?" And we think that if God cared, I wouldn't have lost my shop. I wouldn't be going through depression. God, if you cared, you'd help me out in my financial hole. My parents wouldn't be getting a divorce. My marriage wouldn't be struggling. God, if you cared, you would do something. All of that would seem great. The ability to avoid the storm, but that's sadly just not reality. I want to share with you two things that I would encourage you with to remember when you are in the middle of life's storms. First, He is present in your storm. We get so caught up in the what of the storm, we forget the who that's in the boat. But the who is so more powerful than the what. All through scriptures, God has promised his presence over and over again. God will neither fail you nor abandon you. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And even in the New Testament, we see this as well. I am with you always, even to the end of the age. God has promised his presence. Don't get so caught up in the what of the storm that you forget who that is with you in the boat that is in the storm. When you are standing graveside in the cemetery, you are not alone. God is with you. When someone breaks your heart, God is with you. When you lose your job, God is with you. When you receive the phone call that you never wanted to get, God is with you. He will never leave you. He will never forsake you. But note that Jesus never said we wouldn't experience the storms. Rather, he promised we'd never be alone in the storms. Second, he gives purpose to the storm. In Mark chapter 4, it was Jesus who was the one that said, hey, let's go to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. They weren't in the storm because they were outside of his will. They were actually in his will. Jesus knew what was going to happen. So why did Jesus allow the disciples to endure the storm? Well, maybe there was something that they needed to learn in the storm that they couldn't learn on the safety of the shore. And verse 39 tells us this, and he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Just like that, he rebuked the storm. He spoke as one with authority would speak. Why did he do that? Well, he was teaching. He taught how he has authority over the wind and the waves. He didn't just say, hey, please stop. No, he rebuked the weather and said, quiet, be still, peace. One of the things that's cool here was Peter. He was freaking out on the boat. See, he was a professional fisherman. Surely he has seen storms his whole life. So what was the purpose for him? What did he learn? Well, later we see Peter write this, casting all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Remember, storms will come in life, but you are not alone. When you are in a storm, he is present, and he gives it a purpose. Because God cares for the brokenhearted. He draws near to the desperate. He's close to those who are crushed in spirit. You may be rejected by people, but you will never be abandoned by God. Whether you are in the middle of a storm, you're going into a storm, or you're coming out of a storm, remember one day storms will come to an end. Jesus will rebuke all evil. He will restore those who are sick. He will heal those who are depressed. He will bring joy to those who mourn. He will end all rejection. He will wipe away every tear. Jesus will make all things new. Until then, we gather in the boat. So take advantage of the opportunity to talk through these truths that we read in Scripture with your group and share with them the storm that you are going through. And I hope that you can join us next week as we continue to look at the life and the ministry of Elisha.